Hello, and today I'm asking whether you are controlling your own narrative or is Google doing it for you? In a world obsessed with flawless, curated influencer lifestyles, it's so easy to feel like you have to choose between a fake standard of perfection or a cloak of invisibility, particularly as you age. So I'm putting on my creative agency owner hat. I own a small creative studio, and personal branding. Branding is a big part of what I do. So this time I'm looking at why personal branding isn't just about showing off. It's a tool for radical self-awareness, actually. So I've called this Life in Plastic Isn't Fantastic, Finding Authenticity in a Curated Barbie World. Well, we hear a lot about online influencers and personal brands these days. But as I said, I'm the owner of a creative agency and I've worked with many brands over the years, and I am actually, frankly, a little sceptical. Unless you're scrupulously honest, the brand, of course I mean person, simply becomes a construct. It becomes a facsimile of someone designed to highlight the heroic and park the problematic. A polished facade with no apparent flaws. So it's a little bit like a title with no story, but it's designed to make you think, I want what she's got. So inhabiting perfect lifestyles, surrounded by perfect people in perfect locations, it does sound a bit like Barbie's world, come to think of it. But influencer brands are carefully designed to make us want stuff. I mentioned curation, they're curated. And on that note, have you noticed that we no longer just design or make things, we curate everything? Why? Because curating implies much more finesse. And since we live in a time when more is, well, let's face it, just more, I've gone with the zeitgeist. Anyway, if the influencer is flawless, the implication is that by walking a mile in their shoes, forking out on all the stuff they're peddling on behalf of consumer brands, who frankly milk FOMO for all it's worth, that fear of missing out thing, if you fear that you will miss out on, that you won't be happy, you won't be healthy, you won't be the envy of everyone in your orbit if you don't buy or adhere to or do something that they're suggesting. But we find our heroes wherever and however we can. Where's the harm? And also, who am I to judge? Absent a better option, why shouldn't the new deities be online influencers, flogging overpriced skincare or exotic travel, spirituality even? I mean, really, what's the big difference between that and a medieval priest peddling those things called indulgences that allowed you to behave abominably and then just pay for someone to pray it away for you? But either way, it's about feeling part of being something bigger that enables some desired state. But going for perfection is paralyzingly pointless. We all know that no one is, and in the Barbie movie, even Barbie figured that out. But on the surface, there's a compelling and colourful story, but when you go deeper, the facade cracks faster than you can say Lululemon. So what I'm suggesting is we take a little bit of a look at ourselves through a branding lens. And my recent book, Never to Succumb to Beige and Other Tips for a Colourful Life, it attracted a lot of publicity, which was cool, not least in helping help me sell more books. But there was another wholly unexpected benefit. The interviewers loved the title. The questions they asked me were playfully provocative, and they opened some interesting discussions. This process that I went through in promoting my book made me think long and hard about what I value and believe in at this stage in my life, what genuinely matters to me, and how I want to present to the world. And a recurring theme for the interviews was basically, how does one do it? I mean, stay visible, that is. And after much navel-gazing, I figured I could best answer that question by swapping my ostrich-feathered, bling-encrusted personal hat of many colours for my slightly less ostentatious professional hat and put my business brand's frameworks to work. So realistically, often the influencers tend to be younger, they're not all, but personal brands are not just something for the young and trendy. When I think about brands, the most successful ones know what they're about and who they're for. However flippant my opening paragraphs, I kind of like the idea of evaluating who we are through a brand lens. It's a helpful framework to define and review our evolving selves, particularly as we age. People, us, me, you, are multifaceted as the eyes of a dragonfly and just as complicated. Don't you just love that? I'm going to say it again because I'm so pleased with it. People are as multifaceted as the eyes of a dragonfly and just as complicated. So we need to tap into deep self-awareness to see through to our essence. All good brands have defining stories, and these change and evolve as the brand matures and their operating environment changes. I always thought the complications would diminish with age. Instead, they seem to multiply by the day, perhaps due to experience hammering home the fact that instead of the arrogant assumption that we know what we don't know, we finally get that we really don't know what we don't know. And there's a gap the breadth of the Milky Way between those two sets of understanding. Quite by accident, I came across a great way to define my story. The concept of Never Succumb to Beige started as a challenge about what I would call my autobiography at a dinner party one night. It was a fun evening. Imagine a whole bunch of people sitting around a dinner table, sort of at that stage where they're slightly loosening the belts because they're overstuffed and have had, the best part of the wine that they're going to drink. But at the time, I think I went for something a bit lame like Frankie's Follies. My friends at the time all knew me as Frankie and seemed to see me as a cross between Virginia Woolf and Barbarella. So this was pandering to their perceptions rather than mine, Frankie's Follies. But over the years I've come up with a range of options, at least one of which will feature as a chapter in my next book. So I won't do a spoiler alert here. But I stuck with Never Succumb to Beige, which I used as the title of my blog and now the book, because it captures my philosophy of being true to yourself and who you are. And this philosophy hasn't fundamentally changed over my life. Never Succumbing to Beige has become sort of the central theme of my brand. It's my pole star that helps me navigate life's jagged reefs. It's a guiding light that shines brightly on the path I should follow, and it works equally well in my personal and professional personas. So as Madonna would say, how do you do it? Well, strike the pose, there's nothing to it. I love living in a rainbow of glorious and colourful attitude that allows me to be seen and counted. It's important to me to stand and deliver in how I present, what I say and write, how I am with others, and what I bring to the world. I want to matter, and in a good way, of course. But that doesn't mean I aspire to perfection. Far from it. But I do aspire to perfect the qualities that make me unique. Oh, so something just went pop in the sidelines there, sorry. The qualities that make me unique and that set me apart from everyone else. I think my scented candle might have exploded. After all, if I don't control the narrative and tell my story my way, in this online era, Google and the other apps will do it for me. And who wants that? But it's also Never Succumb to Beige. It's also a vision of who I can be as I get older. It means that I can stay vibrant and vital, and I don't worry too much about things like mutton dressed as lamb. I mean, obviously they're appropriate and less appropriate garb. But Never Succumb to Beige means the attitude don't give in. Or as, the more famous version of that, Dylan Thomas's, I've certainly won't be going gentle into that good night, I can promise you. But anyway, it also, Never Succumb to Beige, leaves room for lifelong curiosity and adventure. By never succumbing to beige, I take the path less travelled. I'm looking for new stuff and, I'm innovating and thinking differently the whole time. I'm not just settling. So, my advice, leave the cloak of invisibility on a hook by your door. I'm saddened by how many people I've encountered who feel invisible, marginalised, or useless as they grow older. They tell me it's inevitable, but I fundamentally don't believe that it is. We don't need to allow society's judgment to push us into the railway siding of invisibility. I mean, if we don't give ourselves licence to stay on the main line, no one else will. But perhaps that's easy for me to say. I was born with a sunny, outgoing nature and this insane corkscrew hair, which I've had a love-hate relationship with throughout my life, as you probably see in one of my other blogs. Still, it has the merit of giving me a head start, forgive the pun, in the invisibility non-games. Likely it also played a part in developing a deep-rooted commitment to my individuality and sense of self. Those are not the only things, but it's a starting point. Despite this, I've worked hard to fight feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem. I've also, like most people, at times faced down that lurking menace imposter syndrome. Often, we all have that, and I'm getting better at accepting that everyone has it, so it's not just me, and I'm not an imposter. But basically, my brand, my recidivist disinclination to be anything other than wholly and colourfully myself, helps me feel the fear, do it anyway, and bounce back when the inevitable curveball life lobs lands in my court. So I'd love to inspire people heading towards their older years to believe that invisibility isn't a given, to blaze a trail for younger women that shows ageing isn't a long, lonely, greying road to oblivion. In modern parlance, I'd like to be an influencer, but not one that postures at caring whilst peddling endless products, destinations or wellness miracles for affiliate brands' marketing programs. I want to use whatever influence I can muster to find joy and commonality in our shared, and at times very bizarre humanity, to lighten the mood and bring people together. So I love this quote from Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself, everybody else is taken." It's said that personal branding begins the minute you discover yourself. Knowing what you're about and who you're for requires deep understanding, deep self-understanding, defining and living by a set of firmly held values, making a promise about what you bring to the world and sticking to that. It raises self-awareness and honesty above self-interest and greed. For your brand to succeed means being consistently you, wherever you are, whoever you're with, or whatever you're doing. So you don't just, flicker around like a butterfly in a wind, responding to whoever spoke loudest in your atmosphere last. But you're actually always, you're consistent, your values, and you're holding to who you are. But you're also holding yourself to the highest of standards at the same time. And that's not giving yourself a pass when it's inconvenient or difficult. When someone says something you don't agree with, you don't have to get into a fight about it, but you don't just roll over and, expose your underbelly and say, scratch me, please. But not living in the land of wishful thinking. Not successful brands are not flim-flam. They don't get blown about in the wind like so much tumbleweed in a ghost town. Ultimately, whatever our brand, we're still just people with all the frailties and idiosyncrasies that entails. And even the best brands get it wrong sometimes, but the ones that last don't go down in a fiery bonfire of blame-storming and bruised egos. Their managers recognise what's happened and find a better way. On a personal level, when we lapse or stuff up, our inner brand manager should also cut us some slack and understand that there are times when we just step out of character in the moment. But seeing ourselves through a branding lens helps us be the best people we can be. I'm sorry to use that expression, but in this context it really works. So life really is about choices. Some we regret, some we're proud of, some will haunt us forever. The message: we are what we choose to be, and thanks to Graham Brown for that quote. I say we might as well choose to be something special and gloriously original. I don't know about you, but given my druthers, I wouldn't choose to be a Barbie girl living in the Barbie world, however superficially enticing it appears. Life in plastic is actually only fantastic if you're a doll.